Hey guys, what's up? What's going on? It's Daddy Mike again, and I know your other dad had you last week, but this is my week, and we're all going to have fun, and you're going to tell Daddy Joe how much more fun I am. Anyway, back to business with our usual announcements, the Facebook group, and merch. How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up? The Facebook group is a movie discussion group where you can share and find movie news, movie trailers, movie memes, anything movie or TV related. This week we were sharing a bunch of memes from the A Star Is Born trailer, because I literally cannot get enough of those. So yeah, come join us there. And merch. As always, our web store is still there. It's still running. That's howmanyfingerspodcast.bigcartel.com. There you'll find t-shirts in 2 different colors, koozies in 10 different colors, as well as stickers, and a package deal with all 3 for $11.99. It's the best way to support the podcast financially, but rating and reviewing us on iTunes or sharing our episodes are also great ways to help us out. We appreciate both. Alright, next week is a solo episode for Paul Feig's A Simple Favor. The week after, we've got Night School featuring Constable Cass from the Nuclear Heat podcast. But right now, we've got Shane Black's The Predator featuring Rob Goodman, also from Nuclear Heat, which is a weekly pro wrestling review podcast. Cass and Rob were gracious enough to drive 2 hours to come on the show, and both of their episodes turned out great. So if you enjoyed this episode, definitely go and check them out at nuclearheatpodcast.com. But first, The Predator. Enjoy. Hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Joe.
And you're listening to How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up? The podcast. And this week, we're reviewing The Predator.
Oh, is there a new Kevin Spacey movie?
Welcome to How Many Fingers Am I Holding Up? Featuring 2 guys getting irreversibly naked and reviewing movies in a weekly podcast form.
And that synonym for drunk was left to us by Max Sturmingian.
I love the mental image that leaves me with. Irreversibly naked. Oh God, what have we done?
They are never to put
There's
clothes
no
on
going
again.
back from this. But if you have any further synonym suggestions, you can suggest those on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, email, Gmail, Tumblr, all that. We would love to hear from you. But let us delay no further. Betwixt us, for the first time on this podcast, Rob Goodman. Welcome to the podcast, Rob.
Nice to meet you guys.
Yes, so Rob, you're a co-host of the Nuclear Heat podcast?
That's right. We do a weekly review of wrestling, WWE, indie stuff, Ring of Honor, and we have a good time. So if you like wrestling, come join us.
Are you guys a drinking podcast as well? Or?
We drink as well. Some weeks of wrestling, you'd have to drink.
I understand that.
Yeah, because we were talking before we turned the mics on. You guys are saying that you guys watch like 6 hours of wrestling a week to prepare for this.
It's true, with some judicious fast forwarding.
Yeah. I didn't realize that they did like weekly wrestling. I thought it was just like the WrestleMania and like the big events every once in a while.
Oh, yeah. It's
like
a weekly thing that you tune into, right?
Yeah.
And there's like story
and
arcs.
Continuing storylines that should, when it's done correctly, peak at WrestleMania and SummerSlam. Those should be the best things, but your weekly episodes should be getting you to those events.
Are there any like good storylines going on in wrestling right now, or?
The main WWE storyline is revolving around the 3 favorites, the Shield, facing 3 big bad guys that are coming to wipe them out right now.
Right.
It's not the best time right now, actually. It's not the Rock and Stone Cold right now. Right. We're not in the best time period of wrestling. But you can drink beer and enjoy yourself. So.
Right, yeah.
Cool. So where can everyone find the Nuclear Heat podcast?
You can find us at nuclearheatpodcast.com, and that'll bring you to all our socials and all our episodes.
Perfect. Cool. All right, let's drink some beer because we're going to need it for this movie.
Oh, yeah.
We're drinking Shipyard Smashed Pumpkin Ale with natural flavors.
Ooh.
Figured it's feeling like fall. It's time for a pumpkin beer.
Yeah, this is the time of the year where you go into like a beer store and it's just all pumpkin.
It's also crazy because like pumpkin beer is such a big thing that like breweries will have multiple different types of like pumpkin beer. I was just at a bar last night and saw a different one from Shipyard than this one.
This is I'm not sure if I like this.
It's strong on the pumpkin flavor.
It is.
A lot of the spice.
Whoa, 9%.
It's not bad. I like that. Mm-hmm. To fully enjoy all the flavors, this ale is best drunk at 55 degrees Fahrenheit.
What?
So I guess we gotta let it warm up a little bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would have maybe liked this even like colder or
yeah.
something. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm like okay. I'm like so on like pumpkin flavored beers.
Yeah.
I would agree. I've burned myself out a little bit on pumpkin beer.
Yeah.
Over
So
the
there was
past few
definitely a
years.
season like last year or the year before where it was like ridiculous the amount of pumpkin beers.
Yeah, it's starting to fade.
Mm-hmm. And it was like sort of at the same time that like the pumpkin spice latte thing used to go on. So people would post jokes about like the PSL. And we'd all be like, come on, guys. Like you're all drinking like pumpkin spice ales and shit with beers.
Right, yeah. Like the like a pumpkin like flavored beer like an IPA is basically like the basic white guy as opposed to like the basic white girl
drinking
like
your Shipyard
drink of,
smashed pumpkin. But sponsor us, Shipyard, please.
Yes, this is a very tasty pumpkin ale, Shipyard.
All right. So let me read this IMDb description, and then Joe, I believe, has got some notes for the Predator.
That I do.
When a young boy accidentally triggers the universe's most lethal hunters return to Earth, only a ragtag crew of ex-soldiers and a disgruntled science teacher can prevent the end of the human race. Right off the bat, the boy's not the one who triggers it, right? It lands.
This
Because
is
that's how he.
Yeah.
Because then the Boyd Holbrook character finds the stuff and mails it to the kid. It's not like the kid found it.
It almost sounds like someone just watched that trailer where
Yeah.
it shows him kind of like it looks like he's crashing the ship or something, like the way that it's cut in the trailer.
I don't really know where the disgruntled part for the science teacher character comes from.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware that she was.
They have one
A
scene
teacher.
scene that sets her up. We'll get into it because there's a scene that was cut in the beginning of this movie that's supposed to be more exposition.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because she says scientist a bunch of times
Right.
and explains herself
Yeah.
as a scientist.
I think she's supposed, because when they grab her, I think she's supposed to be on a university campus. There's not a
okay.
whole lot of context given,
Okay.
though.
Jeez.
You
Yeah.
just see some buildings and you're like, maybe a science teacher.
Yeah, I totally just, yeah. All right, but let's get into some notes real quick and then kick this conversation off. So, I can hear Mike's neighbors running. So The Predator is directed by Shane Black. Shane Black has previously written and directed Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Iron Man 3, and The Nice Guys, which you can check out a review of on our website, howmanyfingerspodcast.com. That was 2016. We've been doing this for too long. This Shane Black has also written Lethal Weapon, The Monster Squad, The Last Boy Scout, Last Action Hero, and The Long Kiss Goodnight. Shane Black, actually, I didn't even put this together. Shane Black also played Hawkins in the actual 1987 Predator. I mean, it's easy not to remember because apparently the only reason they casted him was because the studio had read Lethal Weapon, which hadn't been made yet. Or maybe it had, I'm not too sure on the specifics, and they casted him in Predator so that he would come by the studio and do a rewrite on Predator because they liked like his writing style. And then Shane Black was like, hey, that's not my job. I'm an actor here. And then they were like, all right, we're going to kill you in the first 7 minutes. Like, and so that's his role as Hawkins in the first Predator.
That was interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I came across that like very last
I didn't know
minute.
he'd done any acting at all.
He does like minor roles in, I think like his writing career took off and maybe he's trying to make it as an actor at first. I'm not really totally sure. But yeah, he has a lot of like very minor roles in a lot of his films. But Shane Black's co-writer for The Predator was Fred Decker, who I think most famously co-wrote The Monster Squad with Shane Black. The Predator stars Boyd Holbrook, Trayvon Rhodes. Is that his name? Trayvonte Rhodes. Jacob Tremblay, Keegan-Michael Key, Olivia Munn, Thomas Jane, Alfie Allen, and Sterling K. Brown. Filming took place in British Columbia from February to June 2017, with the entire climax being reshot in July 2018 following poor test screenings. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that, because there's a little more details that have come forward. But just one last note, and we were kind of briefly talking about this. I just literally copy and pasted this from Wikipedia, but I'll try to summarize it so I don't have to. But basically, Shane Black's kind of like longtime friend from the industry, Stephen Wilder Striegel. I think he's just known as Steve Wilder.
Should have gone by Steven Striegel.
Yeah. But yeah, he had like a minor unauditioned role in The Predator. I think Shane Black likes to put him in his films. I think he has like a small role in Iron Man 3 and The Nice Guys. However, Wilder has been a registered sex offender since 2010, when he pleaded guilty to enticing a minor by computer after he attempted to lure a 14-year-old girl into a sexual relationship via email. Yeah. So a few days before picture lock on the film, Olivia Munn became aware of this guy in the film or whatever, and she approached Fox executives and she was like, I want this scene, because she shares a scene with him, which is the beginning.
I think it's the first scene she's in. It's it's like her real exposition scene.
So we kind of just like cut into the middle of that scene where it's just kind of like, oh, like come with us, like Olivia Wilde, like we'll take care of your dog. And it seems like a little jarring. You're kind of like, what? But apparently there was some comedic kind
It's
of
supposed to be like a jogger and like she's walking her dog or something, and
and they have some sort of
up,
exchange, and maybe that did some sort of I don't know, better character building for her role.
But yeah, I mean, she was pissed that they put him in that scene without letting her know, like, hey, you're acting in a scene with a convicted sex offender, like someone who tried to lure in like a 14-year-old girl. Like,
yeah, and that kind of
it's shitty. Like, she deserves to know who she's acting with. Everyone else in the film deserves to know like who they're being in a film with, you know, like.
And it's just like this weird combination of kind of like, he's an old time friend, I just kind of like slip him into a scene when I get the chance, kind of. And I guess it was just Shane Black did not put together that this is a bad idea.
It's a bad time to do it as well.
Oh, right, yeah. Like, maybe that shit flew like around Iron Man 3, but like like we're in the fucking Me Too era now. Like, you can't do that, man. Yeah. I don't know.
There was also, there was drama because like Olivia Munn spoke up, and then it was like a while before any of like the male cast members were like, oh yeah, we support this. Like, there's just like a lot of silence from the cast because it was a weird thing, I guess.
And Shane Black defended his casting decision and his friend until issuing a public apology and basically taking back those comments after a backlash. So that's kind of shitty. Yeah. And then Fox released a statement where they were unaware of this guy's background. Should really look into that. And then co-star Sterling Brown tweeted in support of Munn, but initially most other actors on the film remained silent, releasing statements after mounting public pressure. Mm-hmm. So until everyone was like, no, this is kind of fucked up. Like, and that's, it's just a shitty situation. And I'm not even, like, a huge fan of Olivia Munn lately. Like, just, like anytime I see her in a movie, I'm like, ugh. Like, Olivia Munn.
You're a better host.
But even the actresses that you don't like deserve to be supported by the director.
Nobody deserves to. Oh, my God, I can't imagine. If you're working with Olivia Munn and, like, one of your, I don't know. Yeah. This whole I love Shane Black, but like this whole process has been.
Don't sneak your creepy friends into movies. Hundreds of hours go into this, millions of dollars.
Yeah.
your shady friend needs to go before HR before you put him in the movie.
You'd think like a producer would be like, oh, okay, and who is this guy, Shane? Oh, this is my friend. Just fucking let him.
He's a glorified extra. It's one line.
I mean,
Only next to Olivia Munn for like 5 minutes. It's fine.
If he has credits to his name, like the studio is just like, all right, like he's been in movies before. You might not be doing a background check.
Oh, I guess this is a Shane Black thing. I don't know. Let him in. Yeah.
The FBI already checked this guy out 6 times, so we're fine.
But I think the fact that it negatively affected the final product of the picture just shows how poor of a choice it was. Like, it fucked up the exposition of this movie to the point where in this IMDb description we're like, is she a science teacher?
Right.
I think
She does science stuff.
This scene was not going to save this film.
That's so true. Just to be...
Well, because the entire half of the movie, the last half of the movie is like reshot, and we'll get into it. There's clearly there was a different movie here before, and then in post, something else was done to this movie.
So let's, real quick, just because this has been such a weird movie coming out, and I feel like we didn't really get that, it had pretty negative critical review when it first came out. But before that, everyone was kind of like, what is this? Like, is this going to be a good movie? And then there was like one trailer where it was kind of like I was talking about before, where it's kind of like Jacob Tremblay, and he's got the spaceship, and then it's crashing kind of, and it's cut between that. And I wasn't like crazy about that.
I actually
trailer.
liked that one. It wasn't really showing the humor of the movie yet, I think, but it was showing sort of the darker side of it, the more violent side of it. And just it showed who was involved, and it was a lot of people that I think are pretty cool right now, like Trevante Rhodes, Sterling K. Brown, Boyd Holbrook, Jacob Tremblay, obviously off of his awesome performance in Room. So I was curious about it from the first trailer, and then I know you had a real positive reaction to the second trailer.
Yeah, and then the second trailer, there was like humor and everything, and I was like, okay, because we liked The Other Guys. That's a good movie.
The Nice Guys.
Nice Guys. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. It was smart. It was clever. It was really well done and put together. It was just like really great writing, and it was just kind of something you would expect from, again, the guy who wrote Lethal Weapon and the guy who fucking wrote the two writers in this wrote the Monster Squad together. How does that go wrong? You know. What about you? Did you see either of the trailers going in, or what was your thoughts before you started hearing critiques or like saw it for
before
yourself?
the backlash? I don't remember seeing either of the trailers for this one, and to be fair, I'm not a big Predator person. So I think of the three that get lumped together here would be the Terminator, Alien, and the Predator, and the other two are considerably better than the Predator. So I wasn't excited for it.
The Predator is also a really unfortunate title for a movie in which a convicted sex offender stars.
It is.
It's just bad all
Shane
around.
Black. Shane Black hired the Predator. But yeah, like you were saying before, like this whole cast, or at least like these kind of like army flunkies, kind of is. It's a cool cast. It's kind of like, I want to see these
Everyone
guys.
Everyone in here
like,
has done something awesome at some point in their career. Like Keegan-Michael Key, obviously from Key and Peele. Trevante Rhodes from Moonlight. Boyd Holbrook was pretty good in Logan. He was the villain in Logan. Jacob
the
Tremblay.
internet gives Boyd some shit too. And I like him. And I think he's kind of doing a good job in this movie. Yeah, I think like whatever they gave him to work with. I think he's doing
a good job for what's written. I think there's probably a flawed character in what's written in the script.
Yeah, I just wanted to put that out there. He was in something else that we reviewed recently too. I forget what else besides Logan.
Then there's the one guy that's from Game of Thrones, Alfie Allen, who is really not great in this compared to how he is in like Game of Thrones.
Right.
Thomas Jane, been in Deep Blue Sea, one of my favorite like monster movies.
Right. But yeah, how does this movie even start? What is like the first scene?
Well, it opens in the jungle, like kind of reminiscent of the first Predator. Because it's like the whatever the Army Rangers and the
Boyd's like sniper mission.
Yeah.
He's like,
What?
I don't know. It's just, it feels like a video game kind of, and like he's got like,
I got eyes on the target.
right, yeah. It's not bad. I like it. He's in like Mexico or something, and there's kidnapped people, and it's a cartel, and he's got and
Yeah, and it's got like a little bit like it's a little snappy in the beginning, like they're making the jokes, but like, oh, you're really making jokes about like whether or not they've executed the hostages or not,
right?
And it's got some life going on in
yes.
the beginning of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the ship crashes,
mm-hmm.
and then it kind of gets like real violent like right away. Like I think they do a good job of like setting up this movie where you're like, it's funny. It's reminiscent of the first Predator, and it's way more violent than the first Predator ever was.
Right.
It feels like a modern R take on Predator.
Mm-hmm.
Predator might have been R. I can't remember.
I don't remember.
First one.
I don't know. But yeah, so he has a run-in with the Predator, or a Predator,
Mm-hmm.
and jeez, this movie's like not that memorable, honestly. I'm like struggling to remember details. He comes in possession of like
Predator stuff,
Predator armor stuff, technology.
That part kind of happens kind of fast.
Yeah.
Like he's just
this
kind of like
whole movie
taking,
happens really
well,
fast.
Like, they don't really do a great job in that scene of showing us like why is he coming to the conclusion that I need to take stuff basically as collateral for myself. Like
I would almost say that
'cause that's why
a lot of this movie is cut.
Yeah, well, because like he says like, oh, this is like way above our pay grade, but like that line makes you think like, oh, he just means like we shouldn't be dealing with this. But I think what he's trying to say is like, oh, we're in over our head, they're gonna kill us, so we need
yes.
to take stuff to protect ourselves. And
yes.
they don't really show us the like mental footsteps that he takes to get there. So we're just kind of like, okay, like why are you scared? Like,
yeah, some people seem to be in a very frightened first contact mode, and
yes.
some people are just like, yeah, there's aliens and they're murderers. You know,
they didn't really act like you would expect people to act seeing first contact with aliens before.
Yeah.
Right, which is, it's crazy because we start out kind of, it's like this normal kind of like military guys who are, again, doing their video game mission of gotta headshot this guy kind of, and it's just kind of like the fucking universe rips open and a spaceship that we have no prior knowledge of like crashes into the earth. Like everybody should be like, ah! You know, like, what the fuck?
Well, and like even when the spaceship's just crashing, like maybe your first thought is like, oh, that's like, you know, some
right.
super government expensive
right.
shit. But then when you see the actual alien, like that should be like, oh my god, like, what's going on?
Time
here?
to go. Yeah.
Especially when he sees like the actual alien's face, because like I think they
Right.
make him look like an actual creepy like horror character in this. Like he's not so much inside the mask in this. You know, we see a lot of underneath the mask, and he's got the, you know, the four fangs and everything. They do a really good job making the eyes really creepy. In this, there's one scene where he's like shining the flashlight on its face, and it's real creepy looking. And
you know what I hate about like, I'm gonna go so hard into like how they cut this movie.
oh yeah, go for
Sometimes, just before I forget, sometimes like I mean, we see it on the poster, we see it a lot in the movie. One of the most iconic imagery of like the Predator franchise is to kind of have like the thermal vision or whatever. But sometimes he has his fucking mask off, and they'll cut back and forth between like his like bare naked face without like the Predator mask with all the technology in it, and like him like seeing like a thermal view of something.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
And I'll be like, come on, guys! Like there has to be some sort of
Is that
continuity.
bad editing, or do you think they're trying to say that the alien actual sight is in thermal vision?
That'd be wild.
And the mask is just adding like the, you know, detected or whatever.
I don't know. I think it's sloppy
GUI.
editing.
Yeah.
But
you can blame most of this movie on sloppy editing.
I connected a lot of that to the idea that the kid and the Predator seemed to be seeing things parallel when the kid
Yes.
was wearing the mask. So I didn't even make the connection that the Predator was sometimes seeing in thermal vision it shouldn't be.
right, yeah.
Because there was a lot going on with the Predator mask.
There is. Jeez, I don't even know where we go from there.
It's also like this movie for a movie that's cut so... I imagine... I feel like there's probably like a 5-hour cut of this movie somewhere. Because there's so many characters, and they bungle all of the exposition for every character in this movie. Like, every time there's a scene where they try to do exposition, I want to be like, this is a reshoot, right? Like, because it seems weird, and I feel like they're not even getting all of the exposition across. Like, I was so confused about the relationship. I didn't realize until, like, deep into the movie that the Jacob Tremblay character was his son.
Oh, who did you think he was?
I didn't know, because they would have like one quick scene and
but he mailed it to his house.
Yeah, and then I guess the post office guy brought it to... Well, he mailed it to the post office. He didn't want it to actually be at his house. So I didn't know if... There's a lot where I was just like, all right, I think that's what you want me to think, so that's what I'm going to assume is going on here in the movie, but I wasn't totally sure. Like, again, with like the Olivia Munn character, and like when he gets like put on like the bus, like that's not even exposition, just actual like events in this movie are poorly cut and handled, where I'm like, why is he on the bus? What jail is he going to? Like, what crime did he commit?
Because
they didn't fully set up that, like, oh, like now that he's seen the Predator, they're going to assume that he's mentally disabled, essentially. And
I thought I blinked and I missed the explanation for why he was on the bus with the crazy guys. There is no explanation.
Okay. I think there's a really long... too much, I guess. I think if you gave like Shane Black final cut for this, there'd be like a 3 or 4 hour cut of this movie. I think he had like grand visions for this, and probably filmed, because we'll get into it when we get into like the climax of this movie, but they filmed the whole climax, and then the studio watched it and was like, oh God, what did we do? Like,
well, I think
why was no one watching over Shane Black while he made this movie?
Oh no, yeah, and I think they showed like the Shane Black cut to audiences, and people were like,
they have like screenshots of it, and it's hilarious.
What is this kind of? Yeah.
So I have to imagine there's stuff in the beginning too that like they probably were like, this movie is 4 hours long. We need to trim somewhere.
There's something where they have... I mean, now I'm going to start skipping around in the movie. I'm not going to go like into spoiler territory necessarily yet, but they have the Predator kind of tied down in this like secret lab or whatever, and then it escapes and it's fucking... turns into a slasher movie all of a sudden.
I didn't mind that, though. I like that this movie is willing to go that violent.
I mean... Yeah.
It's a little goofy looking. But.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just such one aspect of this film that I will like tip my hat to is that like it's trying to do something different. It's not a complete like rehashing of like, it's the Predator. He hunts down guys in the jungle, even though that's the reshoot. That's what that is. But what's it called? Oh, he's killing all these guys, and then he sees Olivia Munn. I guess she's just like naked and afraid.
Didn't like the fact that they just had to randomly make her naked. Like,
yeah, whatever. That
was a little too like horror movie always has to have like the nudity and shit.
But then he doesn't attack her. Later, she's like, guys, I was like naked and afraid earlier, and he didn't attack me. Not the reality show, and he didn't attack me. And then like I feel like there was supposed to be like this
there should have been a third beat.
Other payoff that like got lost in the like.
Is just there a line of a character connecting those dots? Like, oh, maybe you have to threaten them to...
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's all get naked.
Right, yes. They're saying, I hope there's a scene. So, yeah.
They're saying the Predators are like Iron Man. Or not, Iron Giant. The Iron Giant.
Right. If you don't pose a threat, it's not going to hurt you.
If you don't point the gun at him, he won't turn into the
But he's fucking machine. Ripping apart scientists who are like,
Well, I think that part was the Predator... I don't know, is that Predator supposed to be the Predator? Or the big one that shows up as the Predator? Either way, the one that's escaping from the lab, like he's on this mission to make sure that the humans get, his payload that he was bringing here, which is like the weapons that will, help the humans defend themselves against the predators that are coming.
All right, we're in full-blown spoiler mode now.
Well, they pieced that together like bit by bit. They know that there was something there. So he's trying to escape to make sure that he can go deliver that message or whatever, I guess. But it's like he's willing to kill people to get there.
The minute you start talking out loud about this movie, you start sounding fucking crazy. You're like, well, small predator is being chased by a big predator, and small predator knows global warming is coming, and
and then predator dogs show up.
Yes,
but they're able to brain one of the predator dogs, and it's good predator
They're
dog.
able to domesticate predator dog by fucking shooting it in the brain. He's still like.
Massive brain hemorrhaging leads to a good predator dog.
The first, soon as I saw that trailer where they had predator dogs, like I think I said this too, I started having flashbacks of that, like Edward Norton the Hulk, where like the scientist makes Hulk dogs. I was like, oh no, why predator dogs?
It does reek of like things that happen in like sequels where like, well, we got to one up what we did in the first one. It can't just be another predator.
It can't just be a predator.
So it's got to be a bigger predator, and then there's a bigger dog as well.
What if predators had things we had on Earth? Like, I don't know, predator dog, predator cat, predator,
It's also like because they go into later, like, again, poorly, they're trying to explain that Olivia Munn is starting to understand that they are upgrading themselves with our DNA. And like making hybrids essentially of their race and better humans. So they want to always get the better humans. That's what they've been coming here for.
Right.
So then you can assume that like the predator dogs are created with our dogs here and them. And it's just kind of like, if you came to Earth, like, is that the creature that you're like, oh, this is what we need to like breed? Like, it's not like dogs are like ultimate killers here on Earth. Like, we've domesticated most of them. Well, like the ones that they make, they're clearly like meant to be like pit bull type like dogs. Well, it's not like they got like wolves or like actual carnivore dogs from Earth.
Well, I can see the kind of connective tissue
because it could be trained, I guess.
Right. It's kind of like predators are hunters and hunters have dogs, and it's like they sniff out the scent, and that's what it's literally just like. It's so, like, that's another thing, is that these predators are so human, like, they're a human idea, like, kind of, like, there's nothing really that, the predator is not that otherworldly to me. It's just kind of like, oh man, he's like a Marine who's like, who hunts for sport, and yeah, and then in this movie they take that even further, where it's kind of like,
did we know that they hunted for sport in the first Predator? Or was it just an alien that was fucking people up?
I think that was more of a revelation towards the end of Predator.
Of the first one?
Yeah. He's definitely... I don't think there's any I don't think the Predator is hunting these guys in the jungle out of survival. I think it kind of appears to be a game, kind of.
I haven't seen it in so long.
Same.
It's all I really
kind
remember
of a blur.
is like Carl Weathers and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
And I
smacking hands.
I love that. I don't know. I love Shane Black's kind of voice in scripts in everything, but I never got any of that. I didn't get a lot of that from this film, and the only thing that this film fucking loves to like pat itself on the back about, and they bring it up like 2 or 3 times, and it's like, Predator. More like like a fucking, like, I forget exactly what they say, like sport
hunter?
Yeah, like sport hunter or whatever. Like, I
Predator
think
hunts for survival.
Right, yeah. And it was just kind of like, okay, you said it once, man. Like, let's...
It's also, like, I like that this movie goes dark in terms of, like, the violence in this movie and, like, the gore in here. But I don't really like the fact that they just feel the need to make every single line be like... Fuck yeah, fuck this, fuck that, fucking... Like, literally, when they're explaining, like, we thought Predator sounds cool, and Sterling K. Brown, who's supposed to be, like, the lead, like, scientist character from this like, government organization, is just like, fuck yeah.
That's the minute where I was like, okay. Like, the military kind of flunkies or whatever...
That makes sense, yeah,
they're like, cursing, like, sailors, and that's fine. But, like, the minute, like... I think there's, like, even a part where, like... Sterling K. Brown and a scientist man are like, fuck yeah, fuck yeah. And I'm like, okay, this is written by a 13-year-old who's trying the F word out in the backyard. Like, it's just like, it's too much. It's like, like, I don't even really want to talk about like how this movie doesn't understand Tourette's. doesn't really understand autism, doesn't really understand. Like, it feels like, again, it's written by a 13-year-old where it's kind of like
it's like an old like South Park joke, like the like the Tourette's thing. Like it's a really dated sort of like comedy technique now. To be like, oh, that character has Tourette's, so he's gonna be like, oh, fucking pussy or whatever, and just like blurt out whatever like swear words come to mind. Like that's dated. That's very dated at this point.
And he has to sound like angry when he says it all the time. It's just like this big like misunderstanding of what Tourette's is, and then like there's like that point where they're in like the motel or whatever, and like part of me just felt like they wrote him in like that just so like Olivia Munn can be like, did you say like whatever my pussy or something? She says something grotesque, and like I could tell, I was like, is that what this was all about? Because there's no arc that involves the Tourette's or whatever.
It was literally just a sidetrack for that like comedy scene, and it was weirdly edited in that scene. Like they spent way too much time on that. Like she's about to head out the door for some reason, and he like says that, and that's like what stops her.
And he's, again, Shane Black's a very intelligent writer. He does like a lot of really great dialogue, a lot of really great like plot points. And this movie is just like, if they don't know how to end a scene, it's just like, fuck pussy, you know? It's just like, what is that really what it's like devolved into?
They
like,
go to the same joke of, because I guess like the Keegan-Michael Key character is supposed to be good friends with the Thomas Jane character, and they go to the same like scene-ending joke like 3 or 4 times, where Keegan-Michael Key will purposely try to get Thomas Jane angry so that he'll blurt out like a Tourette's, spasm or whatever.
Which is not how those tics work.
No, not at all.
Not at all. And that's
when he gets angry.
It's not like, oh, let me just poke the Tourette's person and they'll say what we want them to say.
That's not the only example of a very similar joke that's distasteful when he asks them, please don't say retarded as a pejorative. And then somebody comes back with, because his son's retarded.
Yeah.
That's really not an intelligently written joke.
Why does the script feel so dated?
Yeah,
it does. It feels like it's humor from the 80s or 90s, like just from when we didn't know better. You know, it was just kind of like, I don't know, I'm just throwing things out there.
It's like either that or like Shane Black is part of like the like anti-PC crowd. It's like, you know what? We're gonna have a fuck word in every goddamn line in this scene, and we're gonna use the R word, and we're gonna misunderstand everything that's sensitive right now. It was weird. Very weird.
Yeah.
I think there's... I like, as a general concept and as a unit, the sort of like defect crew. You know, everyone that's in the bus.
Oh, it's great.
Them being these kind of like people that the army has thrown out for whatever reason. They've been cast aside. And I like the concept of like them seeing that something alien has landed and being like, we all kind of want to die anyway. Like, you know, it's almost like this is like the Suicide Squad, you know? Like I was more compelled by this story of like these army rejects being like, fuck it, like, you want to go fight an alien? Like, all we know is like, you know, army and killing shit, and, you know, half of them have like a death wish anyway. Why not us to save them? Because they're gonna, you know, basically just ship us away anyway. I think that's interesting, but I think there's way too many characters in this unit.
On the other
they don't
side,
have enough time to explain half of them.
On the other side of the coin, I do not like that scene. The end of the scene where they go to Boyd's house with his wife and everything, and it's just kind of this slow trickle of like, yeah, I want to die. Like, I'll go do it. And then it's like, come on, guys.
Don't you want to die too?
Yeah, okay, I'll die. And then there's 2 more guys on the couch, and it's kind of like, come on, guys. And they're like, okay, we'll come. And it was just like, oh, man. Like, there's not a lot of motivation to go.
It could have been, I think they leaned more on comedy in that scene when that could have been a nice, like, one sentimental moment in this movie to be. Because I
also never really believed that they were going to go die. You know, like, it was
I think I believe it with Trevante Rhodes. I think he gives an actual great performance in this kind of crappy movie, you know, where he just is this kind of like zany guy. He's like putting the cigarette out on his tongue. Like, he's just kind of like, whatever, man. Like, I'm here, and if I'm not, I'm not. I don't care. And I think that is kind of energetic in that performance, and I believe him when he's like, yeah, fuck it. Like, we can do something good with this sort of death wish that we have. I don't really believe it from a lot of the other characters. They just seem more like they're fun-loving and they want to party, not necessarily like, oh, we want to go die. And they didn't really need to give that motivation to them. There could have been something more sentimental, like,
right.
Like society thinks that, we can't do, we're not worth anything. We're the ones in the prison bus being shipped away because we're too mentally unstable. Let's prove that, we got to the army for a reason and we are the people who can save this thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different ways you could have gone without having to, like, it devolved to comedy and resorted to comedy too much in this. And I don't know if that's, like, maybe there was an unfunny cut of this movie and then in the reshoots they punched it up too much, because there was a lot of, like, comedy at weird points in this movie, I thought.
I don't know. Yeah.
It just seemed like every scene had to be like, and here's the beat, and here's the beat. Not
just comedy, but the wrong kind of comedy as well. Because there's
a
lot of campy, slapsticky stuff in this movie that seems out of place as well. There was a ton of... They were falling down on top of the alien spaceship. She shot herself with a tranquilizer gun. There's a lot of campy stuff for a horror sci-fi movie.
And this got like a handful of genuine laughs out of me.
I do think one of the biggest laughs to that note was the slapstick part of, like, him being like, come on, lady, like, jump into my arms. And then he gets distracted by, like, whatever's going on over there, and he moves, and she jumps, and she just falls. Like, it was just a genuine... solid laugh right there. But yeah, there was a lot of maybe too much slapstick going on there. Sorry, I cut you off.
Oh no, I don't even remember what I was about to say. Did you watch the Red Letter Media review of this? The one thing that I kind of had like the same thought, where I think Mike says it or whatever, he said like, there is a point, again, Olivia Munn is kind of like naked in the laboratory or wherever, secret base, and the Predator escapes, and then she kind of puts on clothes, grabs like the tranquilizer like rifle kind of, and like really fucking takes off after this thing. She's like running on a roof and then jumps to like another roof, and then like, and it's just kind of like strange to see that because she's doing all these tasks, but she is this kind of like scientific, like either professor or whatever. And it was just kind of like, I think Mike said, he's like, I kept waiting, like, and I was about to say the same thing, where it's kind of like, I don't know what movie I saw recently, but they did this, and it was kind of like, I kept waiting for the beat where she was like, we're like, wow, we saw you like fucking tracking that thing out there, and that was really impressive. She was like, yeah, I was stationed in Afghanistan, I was just, doing whatever out there, and then I transitioned into science or whatever. Like, I have the proper training to kind of like... perform these tasks that you just
try to cover their tracks at one point, because like when she actually first grabs the tranquilizer after the one character is kind of like, do not let him get away, she's like, not my predator, which I think was meant to be a much funnier line than it actually turns out being. It's like got really flatly performed. Again, because so much of this movie was reshot, every scene I look at, I'm like, was this a reshoot? Because this is bad. And it makes me think, like, did the the test audience that watched this, were they like, why is she involved in any of this? And do they need to be like, oh, all right, she's like a sort of an unwilling participant who's like, fuck it, like, I guess I have to because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
I think on the other side of that coin, though,
okay,
all these guys have just witnessed her running at full speed and jumping on top of a bus, staring down an alien and shooting it with a tranquilizer gun. And then they get to the baseball field and he's like, grab my kid. Like, she has already proven that she's a badass.
Right, yeah.
Nettles can grab your kid.
Right.
Give her a gun.
She does a good job in this. Again, like, I've seen her in stuff lately where I'm like... Olivia Munn, kind of. She really holds her own in this. Again, I feel like this character is so underwritten. There's like a bunch of like just bizarre shit that happens with this character, kind of like at the end where this spaceship is fucking trying to leave Earth's atmosphere and is going so fast or whatever, and they left her behind miles ago, and then like all of a sudden the spaceship crash lands and she pops back up and like shoots him. I was like, did she just cover fucking like 20 miles? Like, it was just kind of like, oh, that's Deus Ex Machina.
She did track in college shows. Through the woods.
It got cut out in that first scene.
They had the actual Predator running alongside her.
But yeah, let's talk about So the third scene that was cut out, I mean, I don't know what you read. I didn't read too much about it, but I saw...
Third scene that was...
Third act.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
Sorry.
I think there's more than 3 scenes cut out.
But there are pictures of our heroes who are sharing a military tank with good predators who are going to fight the bad predators. So everyone's like, I was listening to somebody's review of this, and he was like, hashtag release the Shane Black cut, and I'm like, please don't, because whatever that was, I think the studios fuck up a lot of movies, but I think they may have saved this. They may have saved face on this one.
Well, I don't know. Like, I think they might have saved the ending, but somehow hurt the rest of the movie.
Oh no, yeah,
like,
definitely.
I have to kind of imagine, like, based on Shane Black's body of work before, that there's probably a better cut if he is completely in control of this. I don't know. I kind of want to see the Shane Black version of this.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be out there.
Just to be like, what the fuck was the ending to this movie? Because I don't know that I think the ending that does show up is maybe marginally better than what was there before. And I think there's probably a version of this movie that Shane Black was okay with that was probably campier and cheesier, based on the images that came out. Like, again, you have that like grainy image of like a predator in like the top of like a like military vehicle, like manning like the turret. It's the goofiest looking picture ever. I need to see that scene.
I just
like
that
they don't want to
seems-
shoot their predator guns. They're gonna shoot this.
That just seems like such a leap. I want to know like the work that just seems like they had to have done so much work to be like, now the humans and like the humans who were unaware the predators or other life in this universe existed are now teaming up on this like military pursuit of like a bad predator. Like, it was just kind of like, God, how much did they cut out, kind of? Or like, how quick did they jump to like, hey man, you're fighting for the same side, get in. And they like, just kind of like right on the tent. There's just like a real quick cut to like,
I want to see like a predator with like a bandana tied around with like an American flag, like chugging a beer, and then
they toss the predator a beer, and he's like,
it's like biting into it with his fangs to shotgun it.
he like chugs it, and he's like, Semper Fi. This movie feels like it's written by like dude bros or frat brothers, you know, like it's
it reeks of like toxic masculinity a little bit, this movie. Like it needed to just like tone down a little bit.
Oh, you know, scene I did not like, it was kind of supposed to be like this emotional thing. It was when his wife like springs into a monologue and she's like, he may not be a good husband, but he's a damn good soldier. Like, and I was just like, oh boy.
Yeah, there's something missing there.
I was just kind of like, we have never heard her talk before, and now there's this.
They tried to have the emotional scene with Jacob Tremblay and Boyd Holbrook as his father, and that was a little weird too. Like, I can't remember exactly what the dialogue was in that scene, but it was like almost like Jacob Tremblay being like, basically like, you're kind of embarrassed of me, and Boyd Holbrook being like, you're not wrong, but here's why it's okay.
Oh no.
I forget exactly how he worded it, but it was a little cringy.
Shane Black does so much fantastic work with like adult-child relationships. Just can't stop thinking of his friend. But it's in Iron Man 3, there's like a really like humanizing.
That's the one where he's starting to get the panic attacks, and
There's like this very humanizing arc for Tony Stark and his relationship with this kid and everything. And then I think even in The Nice Guys, it's kind of like Ryan Gosling is this single father, and his daughter is very involved in this business he has and everything. It's just like, I'm just trying to do the best I can with this and everything. And I think he wants to do the same thing with Jacob Tremblay, but it's just kind of like him and Boyd, whatever his name is, Boyd Holbrook, are just, they're never in the same spot. And I felt like there was like a really like just emotional like layup, like that was like there for him to be like, hey man, like like we're two different people, but I need you to be strong or whatever, like anything they could have put in there that could have like, brought some sort of emotional.
They have so few scenes together, and they have such poor chemistry together that like I think they wanted it to be this sort of like, sentimental relationship because it's like quirky and whatever, but it basically just makes Boyd Holbrook look like a deadbeat dad. Like you're just kind of like, oh, you really don't know your son and you really haven't been there for him at all. Like, which is a weird thing to happen for like the protagonist, because he's all of it happens while he's so preoccupied with this like predator mission that like it almost seems like an annoyance to him to have to reassure his son about how he feels about him. And like that's a weird thing to happen for the protagonist of a movie, because it starts like lessening our opinion of him right away, and we're just kind of like, all right, like why do I really care about you fighting this predator if you don't really care about taking care of your own son, really?
Oh, he's really hell-bent on this whole predator thing. It is. It's like his family's kind of an annoyance. I don't know. And
then also when they go to his house and like that his wife has that scene where she's like, he may not be a good husband, but he's a damn good soldier. It's the last time we see her. We're clearly missing some kind of like tie-up scene.
Yeah. No, there's no payoff to that.
And then
when she throws the cell phone down the drain, there's no payoff to that.
Yeah, literally. There's something missing there. And then, I mean, I think we're probably healthily in spoiler territory now.
Oh, you guys go see the movie now.
I recommend. But then, like at the very end of the movie, when we find out that the Jacob Tremblay character is now working for like the government, basically, like. Did she have any say in that, or did like his deadbeat dad show up and just be like, "Yeah, I signed him up to work for the government. You're never gonna see him again."
He'll be 9 next year, so that's perfect.
Why? Like they could have just all they need to do is have her visiting at the end with him, like both parents visiting, and that would even show like, oh, like they're together again and they've worked things out for the most part.
Yeah, that brings up another horrible movie trope here that. That the autistic kid is a genius as well, which is
genius,
not
how autism works.
That's not how that works.
I have a major problem with the Jacob Tremblay character because I think they set him up well in the beginning for what maybe he was originally intended to be, minus the whole like genius autism thing. Because they do. I really like the scene of like him in the classroom, and like he's affected by the loud noises when the fire alarm gets pulled off and people are picking on him for it. But then they show that he's got this photographic memory because he sets up all the chess pieces that were knocked over by memory. Like that's great. Like wordless, just set up like, who is this character? I get him right away.
Yeah.
But then they abandon everything that they set up because later on, like there's this crazy stuff going on, and like the same kid who was like freaking out when the fire alarm was going off. Why is he not like in the corner like? Shriveled up and crying, and we have to have our main characters like save him or something. Like
there's like
they want him to be like this badass later on, but there's no arc there. There's no progression, so it makes no sense. Right. Like especially when like he's been kidnapped by this strange government man, Sterling K. Brown, who's cursing all the fucking time, and then like they have the scene where he's using like the reverse psychology on him, and then they want Jacob Tremblay to have a badass line. So he's like, "Oh, like I know reverse psychology too. You can't go fuck yourself or whatever." That doesn't make sense with what you set up.
No.
Like this was the character who was scared of like a high school fire alarm. Meanwhile, he's stuck in the middle of a fucking like US,
intergalactic war.
Like, military versus fucking like alien technology laser shoot gun off, and he's fine with that. I don't know. That whole payoff, or just that end was weird, where it's just kind of like, he works in Area 51 now. There's no schoolyard bullies here, you know? It's like,
I think they also fucked up by making the Sterling K. Brown character an asshole who's cursing all the time, because I think there was a missed opportunity for him like genuinely connecting with Jacob Tremblay. Because even if they want to go the route of like, he's autistic, so... Like, I mean, because that could even work because they've established that he's got this photographic memory. So it might not even be that he understands the aliens as much as he remembers everything that he saw through the mask. There's probably something you can work with there. And at the very least, he remembers the code for getting into the spaceship or whatever. So they need him
right.
for that.
Where Sterling K. Brown can be like, listen, I know things are rough with your dad, and you guys maybe don't get along or whatever.
And you're probably bullied at school or whatever.
Right,
and,
yeah.
You know, but you're very special. And
yes.
There's a lot of stuff that could have gone on there where it's like this sort of conniving thing where he's, you know, maybe faking things, but being nice to this kid to get what he wants out of him. Because I don't think the kid is the type that would have responded to him being an asshole.
Right.
You know, that would have made the kid shrivel up and, you know, not really respond to that. I think there needed to be like a positive connection there, because they have a little bit of it later on that's almost unintentional when he's like, hey kid, you use the mask, like how does it work? And the kid's like, oh well, it just attacks whenever it feels like or whatever. Like there's like a teeny bit of it there where he's not being an asshole, he's genuinely asking a question and the kid is like happy to respond, and like that kind of seemed better than him being like, fuck you to a little autistic kid.
When Jacob Tremblay fucking murdered somebody who
threw
an apple at his head.
I also don't know, why did they not have him murder his bullies if they're going to go that dark? Like, it's not going to be the kids that have torturing him the entire movie. It's just some random guy that was like, fuck you, trick-or-treater. Not knowing that the kid's autistic.
Also,
And-
go on.
And it's suburbia, and it seems like upper middle class suburbia.
Yeah.
How many people come out of their door and say, fuck you, kid? Have a nice Halloween, asshole.
In this movie, everyone, government officials are like, well, fuck it. I don't know. But again,
everyone is disgruntled in this movie.
It just seems like such a big missed opportunity, but like especially in a theater where you're watching the Halloween, like a trailer for the new Halloween movie kind of coming out, and that opening scene of that trailer, it's like, come on, man, like you could have had fucking Predator running around in Halloween. Yeah. And people would have not like had a second glass, and there could have been like really great hijinks for that. Like it's just kind of like, oh, cool costume, dude! Like, you know, he's running around.
Yeah, and like there was a part
hidden in plain sight.
There was a part in the middle of this movie, like I think when they're on the baseball field, minus the fact that it's like the dogs being involved. That's kind of cool. Where it's rather than them being in the jungle, Predator running around suburbia is a pretty cool concept, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Especially for a dark comedy movie, because there's a lot of comedy built into that, like you're saying. And there could have very easily been other kids being like, oh, cool costume, or like cops being like, all right, take off the mask, buddy.
Yes, and then take it off and then
blows up a cop car or
yeah.
something. There's a lot that could have, and maybe it was there and it got cut out, who knows? Because there's a lot missing.
There's a lot of things in this film that feel like there was a payoff somewhere else that got edited out.
Yeah. I think the third act was supposed to involve an Area 53.
It's 2 steps above Area 51.
I was like, oh.
2 times more secret.
I was like, oh, man. This... I would cut, just out of curiosity, I want to see it, like the Shane Black cut. But I know it's not, it's just going to be too ridiculous. Yeah.
I didn't, again, like another example of something in this movie where it's just, there is explanation and exposition, but it happens so quickly that who knows what the fuck is actually going on. The relationship between Keegan-Michael Key and Thomas Jane. What was that? They have a scene where they're trying to explain it, but it's Boyd Holbrook asking someone else, and they're both talking so horribly that I literally couldn't understand what they were saying. What was supposed to be the connection there?
What's it
I think
called?
at one point Boyd
Keegan-Michael
Holbrook said
Key-
something like, they're friends? Wait, or...
Keegan-Michael Key says, like, oh, I shot, like, an RPG or whatever, like, at my own, like, military vehicle, at my own squad in a military vehicle. And then, what's his name was a part of that squad, and he was inside of the vehicle that Keegan-Michael Key shot at, and he was the only survivor or whatever. So that's why Keegan-Michael Key is crying at that one point, and he's comforting him. I don't know. It was just kind of like, okay, seems like a interesting story, but we don't see a lot about it.
It was weird because Keegan-Michael Key is crying, he's comforting him, and then we get the explanation. Because, like, literally Boyd Holbrook sees that, and it's like, what's the deal with these guys? And someone explains it. And it's like, well, maybe put that explanation before so we understand why they're like so close in that scene.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Again, I also just think there's too many characters in that crew. Like the Alfie Allen character, get rid of him. What is his backstory? What is his like characteristic that's different from the other ones? I could have got rid of the one who was hitting on Olivia Munn the entire time.
Yeah.
Too.
Forgettable character, kind of. Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, like, you've got the if you want to stick with like the outdated like Tourette's joke, that's at least his defining characteristic in this script. And then Keegan-Michael Key is sort of more of the, not the voice of reason, but like the clown of the group. He's the one who's always making the jokes. And then Trevante Rhodes is maybe the leader of this sort of, I felt like the Alfie Allen and that other guy didn't really have, like, who are they? Like, how would you describe them as characters other than just being people to fill out this crew who don't have a backstory?
I don't know.
Like, they said the one guy was, the guy who's hitting on Olivia Munn was religious. But then he's cursing just as much as the rest of them. And they don't really make that a real part of his character. Like, he's not, like, quoting Bible verses or anything. Or being like, hey, man, watch your language. Like, the Lord is listening.
And I, for all it's worth, and I would change his character in the drop of a hat or whatever, but I really do love Sterling K. Brown in this movie. And he's really...
I think in a vacuum... He's great, but in a movie where everyone is cursing,
everyone else is cursing,
and everyone is an asshole, we needed some different shades of morality in this movie, rather than everyone is a horrible person.
When everyone, including the 7-year-old, has to get in, go fuck yourself.
Yes,
every character said, "Go fuck yourself."
I don't know. I wish they kind of gave him more. I think was this in the movie, but like in the trailer, they have like this line where he's like, he gives like. They have like part of like this monologue and somebody's like, what do you do? And he's like, I'm in acquisitions. It's just kind of like something comes to Earth. I see what's going on. It's just like...
Yeah, they didn't really have an introduction for him in this movie. He's just kind of there and he's like, I'm the guy.
It looked like it was like a really great explanation of like what he does or whatever. And again, in every scene, he's really fucking... chewing the scenery like he's chewing that Nicorette gum, but
they talked about it in the Red Letter Media review, but his death scene is also so weak in this that like
every review I've read is like
blink and you miss it, where like they spend so much time being like, Sterling K. Brown is an asshole in this movie. You're not supposed to like him. Then let us like relish in his death a little bit at least. They just have like the thing turns on him and blows him up, and I wouldn't even really... Like, I saw that scene. I can, like, picture it in my head, but it never registered that it was Sterling K. Brown dying in this movie. Right. Until the end of the movie comes and you're like, oh, he's not here anymore.
And we are deep in the third act, and we are in fucking, again, Red Letter Media is like, like, oh, this was like a jump in, new technology. Like, this film was edited with a fucking weed whacker, like it was, because like things are fucking happening so fast that you can't even process really what's going on. And I think that's kind of what they want to like, don't think about it too much. It's just like, here's a half a second of like the character that you've, been identifying with like this entire like story, and he's dead, whatever. Because I kind of didn't process that Sterling K. Williams. Again, it's fucking Saturday morning cartoon-ish, the way that there's cuts where it's just kind of like, well, somebody has a weapon that I've never seen. Where did Sterling K. Brown get a fucking like shoulder mount rocket thing? Like that's something we know from this franchise, but where did he get it?
Well, they did set it up because he's like, oh, give me the goodie bag. And then they pull the stuff out of it. And then he asks the kid, how does it work?
Kind of. Yeah, but still, there's still so much like, again, if that's his death and his demise or whatever, like that turns
He deserves more time, yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it's just like a split second to the point where like I kind of had to go back and be like, oh, yeah, that was him that shot himself in the head. I was expecting... And after not after credits, but, like at the end where, Jacob Tremblay's working, for the government and everything. And then it would like turn over to like Sterling K. Brown and be like, yeah, and this is like the like higher position I'm in now because I like, lived through all that kind of. I was waiting for that scene. And it wasn't until after the movie was over, I was like, did he die? It was just kind of like everybody died in such a fucking split second. I don't know. It was.
I did kind of like there's definitely parts or like maybe just an energy and a vibe to this movie that I did really enjoy, despite it being such an awful movie, technically and like
we've
critically.
seen a lot of bad movies with this podcast. I was about to say recently or whatever, just a lot. I can't say that I ever, at any point during this movie,
I was never
like,
bored.
Yeah,
yes.
no. Mm-hmm. And we've seen a lot of action movies where we're like, Jesus, get on with it, man. Like, this is like, I'm paying attention.
I think it is also a case of like when you have like a professor and there's like the good kids in the class and the bad kids in the class, and like they expect more from the good kids, because they've seen the work they've done before, and their critiques are going to be maybe a little bit more harsh on the good kids because they're capable of more.
Right. Whereas
with the bad kids, it's maybe like get your name right and maybe just a 5-paragraph structure, and that's fine.
Right.
For an essay. And that's how I kind of feel about this movie. Like, I think it was capable of being a slam dunk fucking movie. Like, I think there's a tone to this movie that they sort of hinted at that could have killed. And I think there's a humor to this movie. You take into account like the dark violence in this movie. I think it's like really a good time for that, like, to release it, especially around this time. It could have basically been like a Halloween movie.
Yeah.
And I think they kind of just fucked it up either in post, or maybe Shane Black's original version was so bad and they saved it in post, and this is just the best they could make do with it.
It does kind of feel like they edited away maybe a Starship Troopers kind of movie. I don't know if you guys like that one, but
yeah, definitely.
For the wrong reasons.
Right.
But I think we would have liked this for the wrong reasons too if we saw the original cut.
But there's just some things that are just genuinely like, this is what I want to go to the theaters for, for like a bigger budget type movie. Like I did really like I like the fact that they tried to be different from the original Predator, and they were pretty successful at that for most of the movie. And then I also like the fact that the sort of redoing of the climax turned into this sort of callback to the Predator, where like, he's on the ship and he's like, I'll give you time advantage. And then it basically turns into them in the jungle hiding from the Predator. And I kind of liked that in concept. They just executed everything so poorly. There's a lot of great setup and ideas in this movie, and just nobody knew how to actually make them happen in a way that makes a good movie.
Yeah.
Like
I agree,
the band of misfit soldiers being the only ones that can save us, from the Predator because the government is too bureaucratic, or, whatever you want to say about Sterling K. Brown's character if you fix him in this movie. There's a lot of great ideas, and they just didn't really know what to do with them. And they resorted to humor at like every turn, sort of to like the detriment of this movie. Like,
right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
None of us do.
I don't know. I don't know what happened.
And like they're clearly trying to, like the movie made a decent amount of money its opening weekend, I think, but then it really fell off after that. It like dropped 60% in its second weekend, I think.
It opened at number 1, and then
got beat out by A Simple Favor.
It opened at number 1, and then it lost out to The Nun, which I thought came
out a week or two before it.
Yeah. Right, yeah, which came out significantly, I think, before it. Just because we had reviewed The Nun, and The Nun is really bad, and it's just like people are still gonna go see that, like, just as opposed to this or whatever. Like, Jesus fucking, I think this movie was like 80 million to make.
88 million.
And so much
made
of that,
103 so far at the box office.
So much of that has to,
not a loss yet.
Yeah, so much of that has to be the reshoot expenses, especially if you watch. I mean, like, it looks bad in theaters. I can't imagine when you bring this home to like your TV and you watch it, how the CGI is gonna look, because it looks fucking awful.
It looks very bad. Yeah.
It looks bad in the theaters, but when you bring that home to your TV, it's just like, this flies all up in my business. It's not gonna look good. And it looked particularly bad, like, on like the nice movie screen that I saw it on.
Are you thinking of like the reshoot CGI, like the spaceship scene at the end?
Almost everything. Just a lot.
There were some. I thought there were
like,
some practical effects that looked pretty good. Like I thought the actual Predators looked despite being goofy, but it was like that good kind of goofy where I'm
Right.
like, oh man, I feel like I'm in like an 80s or 90s movie again, and nothing is like, in that weird uncanny valley. Everything feels real, but just super goofy.
Right. But
I thought the spaceships looked really dated. I thought the spaceships
Yeah.
really reminded me most of like Deep Space Nine, which
Yes.
just hit 25 years old. So that is not a positive. I love Star Trek, but that is not a positive statement when your CGI looks 25 years old.
right. And it's,
The dogs looked bad. Yeah.
again, when you can't have guys in Predator costumes, perform some of the stunts, obviously, that the character, the Predators actually do in this movie, it's like you can notice, like, bam, it's just kind of like guy in costume, computer graphic. It was just not seamless at all. It looked bad.
I always wonder, like, our test audience, because they showed this movie to a test audience. Our test audience is not looking at that the same way that we do, because I feel like with all these movies, we're always like, man, the CGI just wasn't good, and why aren't they going back to practical effects in the same way? Like, because again, like you have the Predator stuff, but then a lot of like there's the one scene where the guy gets like split in half, and there's just kind of like his like blood like pouring down. Like it just looked like good practical horror effects. Like they didn't need to go to CGI for that.
There's a lot of violence in here that I was not like. I don't know. It didn't look good.
Which part?
To me. I don't know specifically.
I thought they were really violent early on, and then they kind of tamed themselves.
Yeah.
Later on.
Yeah, I guess that.
Like it was like big set piece violence early on. Like again, like you have something where they had to like bring in like practical effects beforehand, prepared, and then it seemed like they were kind of it was the Predator like punching people and throwing people, and they're throwing like blood splatter in post.
That's what I wanted to say. This movie has 0 set pieces. Mm-hmm. There's nothing memorable. There's no like big scene where you're like, how did they do that? Like a fucking $80-90 million movie, and there's no big set piece. There's no like big like, whoa, they're fighting on this and this is happening. It's kind of crazy that
the only
there's
real
that much
sense
money.
of place was the baseball field.
Yes,
but you're right. Like there probably should have been something with the bus.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Predator was on the bus at one point, I thought, or maybe it was just Olivia Munn, but
he was
like they were in the bus,
yeah.
but the bus should have been a location that they were fighting at.
That's a very odd statement to make
trapped
too.
in.
Is the scene that I remember is when they're on the Little League field. It's a very odd statement to make about an action movie.
But I'm not impressed. I could shoot like a Predator fight out scene if I pay a high school like, hey, if I give you like $400, can we like shoot here the next few nights? Yeah, sure. And just make sure nobody's around so we can just do a bunch of like 3D shit and nothing's in the background. Yeah, okay. And it's like, okay, cool. Well, we don't need a set. It's just kind of like, it's again, if the Predator was like,
we're not even going to do any pyrotechnics.
Right. If the Predator was running around in a neighborhood and they needed a set for that, and oh my god, there's a fucking house split in half and there's a police chase and everything, like that could have been like a really cool set piece. But again, like
it could have used like a chase scene as well in this movie.
Yes,
like, there's so many times where they just kind of like drive away from the Predator. And it's like, well, he'll catch him later.
Nobody ever really does anything.
He literally just sits there at one point,
mm-hmm.
and they drive away on the bus. Like he couldn't run after them. He's huge.
He's like, global warming, it's coming!
Please recycle!
Those aerosol cans! A lot more damage than you think! Your ozone layer! It's depleting!
I'm here to confiscate your straws!
Good move on Starbucks! No more straws! That's gonna save it! Oh man, there's like another scene too where like after the whole spaceship's taking off and Boyd kind of slides around the shield. He after the Sterling K. Brown's like, oh man, we got this fucking like Harvard linguist or whatever, and he couldn't figure it out, but Jacob Tremblay like kind of gets in there on the first try, and then Boyd slides around and then types the same code in like no fucking problem.
He was watching when I did see that in the Red Letter Media review, and I was like, that part was established.
Oh, was it?
Unlike most things in this movie.
Was he watching?
He's watching through the sniper as his kid does
and
it.
And then he memorizes the...
Well, they have a thing because he says something like, that's my boy, or something, when he has some sort of approving line, and it's clearly like, all right, he saw him type in the code. And as an Army Ranger who's done a lot of special ops missions, it's not a huge stretch to be like, all right, he might realize that that's an important code to remember for later on.
But it's not like he's like 931246. It's like upside down triangle with 2 accents on the top on a holographic red screen that has multiple characters.
It's more just you know, like positions. Like it might not be our same characters, but you could be like, well, I mean, it's a 9-digit keypad. I think it's just not 1 through 9.
Still, if we're establishing that like a Harvard scholar cannot figure something like that's so much more simplistic like this out, and then Jacob Tremblay, autistic supermind, figures it out, and then Boyd, I don't know. It was just...
Well, Boyd's just memorizing positions.
That's true, I guess,
and again, it's a 9-digit code, so like, I mean, a Harvard like linguist is not going to figure it out. You need really a hacker who can, you know, play through all the different things. And,
But why did they get the wrong guy at Harvard? You send the guy that can do 10 key instead of this linguist.
It's just kind of, it's also kind of, what did they need Olivia Munn really for?
I mean, that again, there's a weird part of the exposition that's left out where I think it's supposed to be explained that like she's just on call.
She's just kind of like
she's a science teacher. And she's the one that's on like retainer for like, oh, when something does happen, we'll call you, because I think she says he's an evolutionary biologist.
She's kind of also like Kmart Amy Adams in Arrival, you know? It's just kind of like, I don't know. It's like, I don't know.
Except Amy Adams actually does. Like, there's nothing that Olivia Munn comes and tells them that they don't already know from looking at the alien or from being the people who have been studying these aliens. Like,
the most impressive part.
It's her first time seeing everything, and she's just kind of like, okay, I see this. And they're like, yes, that's true. There's nothing that she actually brings to the table besides observations that they're approving.
Besides running 10 miles to the fucking spaceship, and then at the end being like, hey, don't forget this tinfoil animal that I've been keeping in perfect condition this entire time.
that creepy guy gave me while I was sleeping.
Did anyone else feel a weird parallel to Blade Runner, that the tinfoil folded animal is a unicorn? I wasn't sure if they had done that on purpose.
That was weird. I didn't totally know what was going on with the surrounding her while she's sleeping with like all the little weird ornaments or whatever.
And a cup of coffee.
Right, yeah. And then it's just kind of like, oh, that's how we mourn them at the end. I don't know. Like, it was just, I
didn't really appreciate the end of like, oh, like, let's just bury these little ornaments of them. But I thought the scene in the hotel room was kind of funny because it was sort of setting up this, like, they're these strange misfit people who don't really know how it's appropriate to act.
Right.
And she's sort of outside of this group. Like, that was funny before it got to the weird, like, Tourette scene in that scene.
Right.
And before she had to be, like, all badass in that scene as well as a science teacher.
Yeah. I don't know.
And it never paid off, besides the fact that she kept the unicorn for the whole movie. It never paid off that she learned anything about them or they learned anything about her. Not that I recall.
It's not like she really necessarily grew close to any of them and really mourned any of them. And I don't know. It was just a cheap experience, really. A lot of this movie.
Yeah. You guys ready to get into some ratings for this movie?
Yeah, let's do it.
I think we've done it.
All right, let me read the Rotten Tomatoes. On review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 34% based on 213 reviews and an average rating of 5.1 out of 10. The site's critical consensus reads, "The Predator has violence and quips to spare, but its chaotically hollow action adds up to another missed opportunity for a franchise increasingly defined by disappointment."
I haven't seen a lot of like the Predator sequels or offshoots or whatever either.
I probably saw Alien versus Predator.
Mm-hmm.
There was a Predator 2, right?
There was a Predator 2, Predator in the City.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
There was a AVP 2 as well.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. There was, I saw on TV, but I never finished it. What was that 2010's Predators? It's like plural Predator. And I was like, this is okay. It's like a lot of people like know that as a bad movie, and I know a lot of people have been like Red Letter Media and like a few other reviews I've read are kind of compare these two, and it's just kind of like Predators is corny, but it's still better than what this has to bring to the table. So yeah. And
I mean,
again,
they make a good point in that review of like there was a certain time in movies where like we gave the audience like more credit and we didn't feel like we had to over explain everything. And sometimes the concept of a movie like this could just be a fucking creepy alien comes down and he's killing people, and how do you survive? And it didn't have to be like, what is he here for? What are his motivations? How did he genetically come to exist? Like, we didn't have to know that he was an upgraded, like, hybrid alien. We didn't have to know that he was here to save us from global warming or whatever.
There's a point in movie culture in like
now that you're saying it out loud.
Yes. There's a point in like movie culture in like the early 2000s where we really I think that we really used to like started to like over explain, where like audiences and maybe in like the early 2000s would be like, oh damn, the alien's here because global warming. Like, you know, it's just kind of like it's like I didn't need that.
Sometimes like there's a like it's just literally just willing suspension of disbelief where like the audience is like I don't need as much of the explanation. I need more of the parts that are entertaining in the movie and the setup and the good premise. Like a movie like Big, where it's just like all it is literally just Tom Hanks like going to a boardwalk attraction and becoming like an adult.
Right.
And that's all we need to just be like, right, now the hijinks can proceed from here. You know, it doesn't need to make a whole lot of sense. Like, the audience is fine with a lot of cheesy shit in a movie like this. And it could have literally just, all this movie really needed to be is just Predator in suburbia.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
I mean, we did the concrete jungle thing with Predator and that didn't really work. But let's see Predator running around like, you know, the middle class.
During Halloween. The fucking premise writes itself. They did all the work. They did setup. I don't know. Yeah, missed opportunity for sure. And we'll never. I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever truly know what Shane Black's like original cut or vision was for this. Did Shane Black feel like he had, or did they come to Shane Black like now? Oh, like yeah, you just did the Nice Guys or whatever, and you're hot again, like you're in the original Predator, like haha, that's like a funny late night show story or whatever.
The press tour writes itself.
Right, yeah, no, exactly. And like, yeah, it's just kind of like, yeah, I don't know.
But please don't hire any child molesters. That's our one request.
Yeah, sure, no, I got this buddy, but he's, you know what, let's shoot the scene. Olivia Place. Oh boy.
All right. Who shall go first in trying to numerically rank this movie?
I don't know.
I think I can go.
Okay.
I don't have a whole lot more to say. I think I've
I think I've said everything.
Established it. I think this is overall it is a fun movie. Mm-hmm. But there's just so much in it, and they throw so much at you and so much of it doesn't stick that it holds it back. And just knowing like some of the chaos that's going on behind scenes with these massive reshoots, cutting stuff out at the last minute because of poor directorial decisions. Like, it's just clearly not a well-made movie, even if it could have been. Mm-hmm. And that's also why I sort of hold it to a higher standard of like, this could have been like the movie of like the end of summer leading into fall, you know, and it could have had this like weeks long reign at the box office had they maybe been more careful in how they made it, and maybe a little less careful in other scenes, like not feeling like they had to explain parts that don't matter. Like I needed more explanation for the characters and less explanation for the aliens. Like I didn't really care why the aliens were here. That wasn't what was ever compelling about Predator. So I think I'll give it 1.5 fingers. Like I have a hard time giving it a like truly bad movie score.
Yeah,
because I was not bored at all. There was even like if you look at the movie sort of chronologically, like it starts out pretty strong, and it's sort of going strong. It keeps having these like occasional stumbles and blunders, and it's not really until the ending that the movie like really sort of falls on its face. You know, there's a lot of stuff that I disagree with in the beginning of the movie, but for the most part, it's like an above average movie for the first half of it at least, and then it just starts like really sucking.
Yeah.
So I have a hard time giving it like a half finger or a 1 because there was a decent amount of the theater experience where I was like, hell yeah, like this is just a fun movie. I'm having a good time.
Right.
But looking at it overall, it's definitely well below average. So 1.5 fingers for me.
Okay, then I can go next. I still I love sci-fi shit. I don't know if I was expecting a lot of this movie. Especially I don't know. I do like Shane Black. I don't even know if I gave like the what was the Jesus, I keep messing up this title. The Other Guys or The Nice Guys?
Nice Guys.
I don't even think I gave that like a great review or whatever. I still there's so many elements of this movie that I still enjoy. I disagree with people who, again, I think that I keep pounding this idea in. I don't think this movie is going to get any better the more we like unearth like the original. Like I don't think it's going to get better than this, guys. I think this is what it was. I don't know. I think the end was super bad. I think maybe when I was first in this film, I was like, okay, this film could kind of go somewhere good. I think like the first half of this movie, I was like, something good might come of this. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think I'm gonna give it 2 fingers because it's definitely far. There's so much credit I want to give to some of the cast for really trying in this, and other things. I don't know. It's ultimately a disappointment. If somebody was like, should I see that? I would probably just say, no, don't see it. And it sucks that the Monster Squad crew put this out. Like that's just such a disappointment because I love the Monster Squad. But yeah, this isn't quite on the level of just bad movies we've seen this year for me. It's still bad. I don't know. Maybe I should hold it to a higher standard. But I think I'm going to leave off at 2 out of 5 fingers.
It is hard,
right?
Because there are parts where you can see that there were people involved trying to make a better movie.
Yeah,
but it's very confused. There's some parts where it wants to be really a straight action film. There's some parts where it kind of wants to suggest that it's high-minded.
Yes.
There's parts where it's Three Stooges style comedy, which I really didn't like. I think it was one of the worst movies that I've seen in the theater in a long time. I can't come up with something that I've seen in the theater that was worse than this. So I'll give it a begrudging 1.5 fingers myself. I was leaning towards 1. You guys kind of pushed me a little. So 1.5 fingers.
Hey, if you want to go 1, I'm fully behind you.
I do agree. I will not recommend that anyone go out of their way to see this. If it's on Netflix, you've had a couple beers, and you've got nothing to do, you'll be fine. But don't go out of your way to see this.
It's a fine Netflix movie, or don't... Jesus. If you're still on Movie Pass, if you're still hanging on to that sinking ship, if they allow you to see this movie.
Right.
Oh, God. We haven't even talked about Movie Pass in a while, but you and I are both canceled, right? You canceled your
Long
Movie
gone.
Pass? Yeah.
Long gone on a Movie Pass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck to you guys who are still on the Movie Pass boat. So all those ratings, that's going to come to 1.6 repeating, and of course we'll round down to 1.5 fingers. So our rating reigns supreme.
1.5. Yeah, I don't know. I could have easily said 1.5. I'm not upset at all that that's our final score.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like if someone gave this like a 3 or something like that, I also wouldn't.
Yeah.
I'd be like, yeah, okay, like that's also valid because in terms of just pure entertainment, I enjoyed this more than some other movies I've seen this year.
Again, never a dull moment. Really.
It's above sort of the average baseline of enjoyment for movies based on what we've had to see, but it's just not a very well made movie. Clearly, like when you hold it to a microscope, you're like, this is flawed.
I mean, I want to bring up like fucking Rampage, and what was the other Rock movie? Skyscraper. Those are really bad movies. but I almost wish like the original.
This risked more.
It
took risks that those other movies weren't willing to even be like. Maybe we should insert a ton of jokes, and maybe some of them won't work, and maybe we should insert some like character arcs, and maybe they won't work, or we won't have time to explore them.
But the original like Predator, it was just kind of these dudes who are fucking so like nobody fucks with these guys. They're so tough, and then like the premise is like, but what if there was something tough enough to fuck with these guys? Like that's the premise, and I almost wish like if The Rock didn't have like this goody family man kind of image, that he would do something like
they did kind of need a beefcake in this movie.
They needed like an Arnold Schwarzenegger kind of character who was just kind of like
or jacked Carl Weathers.
Right, yeah, just like somebody who, if he could like dirty his image and like be in this and also be kind of like charismatic, I think like I don't know. Again,
it'd be great for this movie because nobody has sex.
But again, I can't see like The Rock's vision and like Shane Black's vision kind of being in the same movie. I don't know. I'm just running all the scenarios in my head. I'm like, what could have made this a good movie? Because I think we all believe that this could have been a better movie than it is.
There's something there.
Right.
Like it wasn't like they were like, oh, we're making a Predator movie, and we were all like, God damn it. Like, like I don't think anyone's too tired of the Predator yet. I think the first Predator had so much genius there, or, lightning in a bottle there, that we've been willing to return to this sort of inkwell so many times, even if it hasn't really worked since the first one.
I can also just picture The Rock kind of like better than, whatever happened in this movie, kind of getting down on one knee with like Jacob Tremblay and be like, hey, no tears. Who's my strong man? Kind of. And like really fucking like just getting those tears out. I don't know.
You're definitely a disappointment to me, but it's okay.
Hey,
just basically what he says.
Just because I'm strong here doesn't mean I'm strong here. You're strong here. Just like me no smart. You're smart.
Oh boy. All right. But if you agree or disagree, leave a comment below on YouTube, SoundCloud, Facebook, Twitter, wherever you're coming into contact with this episode. Let's do some last plugs for Nuclear Heat. Where can everyone find that? It's nuclearheatpodcast.com.
That's correct.
There we go. And for us, we're howmanyfingerspodcast.com for all of our links and social media stuff. Check us out next week. We've got a review of A Simple Favor. And then the week after that, we've got your co-host coming on. We're going to go record that right now for a review of Night School. Constable Cass will be on with us. Woohoo! Woo!
Well, it was a pleasure, guys.
Yeah, thanks
for coming on. Thanks for making the trip out here. It's, this is a great review.
Fun. Yeah. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Goodbye.
Later.